unto 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. By the way, there's some interesting things going on here in Daniel 8. I don't know if you know this, but Daniel 7 is written in Aramaic. Daniel 2 through 7 is written in Aramaic. Daniel 8 is where we start picking up the Holy Language again. Hebrew comes into play in Daniel 8. Why? Well, notice this also. Daniel 2, the vision is given to Nebuchadnezzar of the timeline of world prophecy. What's going to happen in the latter days? Because the king was wondering about this. And so in very broad strokes, God gives Nebuchadnezzar his timeline for world history. In Daniel 7, Daniel receives the same vision again with different symbols, but it's fleshed out a little bit more. And this whole time, by the way, which was the one kingdom that Daniel spent the most time speaking about in Daniel chapter 2? It's the fourth. The one that was strong as iron, that crushed and just shattered everything. Which was the one that Daniel wanted to know most about in Daniel chapter 7? It was the little horn power. It was the fourth kingdom of the earth. He wasn't, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece. There was nothing really interesting. There was nothing of interest going on in any of those times. He wanted to know about what is this power that's going to persecute God's people, that's going to cast down the sanctuary, that God is going to allow to just rule over his people so fiercely and so harshly. That's what his concern was with. And that's what the angel kept expounding to him. There are people, and Daniel chapter 8, if you haven't looked at Daniel 2 and 7 and seen the flesh and the skeleton, when you get to Daniel 8, you could pull anything out of this. But Daniel chapter 8, very specifically, let's take a look at that. Look at verse 20. See, this is how we know that we are just on bedrock here. The ram which you saw having two horns, they're the kings of Media and Persia. The angel just flat out says it. There's no guessing. I love it when God does that because he gives us these postmarks that we know that we're going in the right direction. Verse 21, the rough goat, the he-goat, is the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is its first king. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of that nation, but not with its power. Okay, where are we? Yes. So we know that the ram was Medo-Persia, that the goat is Greece. There are some people that say that Daniel 8 is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, who was out of one of those four nations that Greece split up into, that he did some things. You can read about it in the book of Maccabees, which is an apocryphal book. It's in the Catholic Bible. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's a history. It may be a slightly biased history because it was written by the Jews. But he came into the temple. He desecrated it. He kicked the Jews out of Jerusalem. And it was over a period of a little bit less than about 1,000 days, which is somewhere right around 3 years. And people try and say that this vision of Daniel 8 refers to Antiochus Epiphanes and the sanctuary, the literal sanctuary in Jerusalem being desecrated and all of these things. There are some very good reasons why that doesn't hold any water. And like I said, I would encourage you to be good Bereans, but let's take a look at one of these. Let's see. Look at verse 17. When Daniel's done seeing this vision, he was afraid. I fell upon my face, and he said to me, "Son of man, O son of man, understand, for at the time of the end shall the vision be." In other words, the vision that you just saw refers to the time of the end. There's no way in which Antiochus Epiphanes in the middle of Greece could refer to the time of the end. Greece is mentioned as, the angel mentions Greece in one line, and he moves on. The other reason why this cannot be Antiochus Epiphanes and all of that, why was that? just went out of my head. Oh, it's because of this. In Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. Was Daniel ever interested in the belly and thighs of bronze? What kingdom caught his attention? It was the fourth kingdom. In chapter 2, he spent most of his time talking about the legs of iron. In chapter 7, after all this was explained to him, in chapter 7, the angel kind of taunts with him and says, oh yeah, the four beasts are four kings that come out of the earth, but at the end, God's going to win. And Daniel says, no, you can't leave me with that. I got to know. What is this fourth beast? And that's the one that he keeps zooming in on. That's the one that his interest is constantly focused on. Daniel 8, when we get to Greece, it's a one-liner. Daniel doesn't even care about Greece. What he cares about is the power that comes up after Greece. And so Daniel 8, by the way, the other thing about Daniel 8, there are a lot of clues in Daniel 8. There is a lot of sanctuary language in Daniel 8. I don't know if you know this. These kingdoms were represented as metals to Nebuchadnezzar, as an idol, something he understood. To Daniel, these nations and these powers were represented as wild beasts, which he could totally relate to because, man, these guys are just tearing us up like wild beasts. But now, why does God give Daniel this vision in Daniel chapter 8 in sanctuary language? Why is there a ram? A clean animal. Not only a clean animal, but a sacrificial animal. Why is there a goat? Not only a clean animal, but a sacrificial animal. The mentioning of the sanctuary. It just flat out says the sanctuary. Well, what in the world are we supposed to understand that? By the way, also, this little power spoken of in Daniel 8 as he opposes the daily. And the translators have taken liberty and thrown in sacrifices. What is the daily? In Hebrew, the word is tamid. We studied this, I don't know if you remember this at the beginning, in regards to the sanctuary and its services. The bread shall set before me tamid. And actually that's not continually. And the lights shall burn from the 7-branch candlestick shall burn before me tamid, continually. And your morning and evening sacrifices shall be brought before me tamid, continually. All of these things are pointing us to the sanctuary. They're pointing us to what God is revealing here in chapter 8 has something to do with the heavenly sanctuary. And what service of the sanctuary is connected with judgment? It's the Day of Atonement. It's Yom Kippur. The one day of the year where the high priest goes into the most holy place to make atonement for the people of God, and they are vindicated by the blood of the Lamb. And when he comes out, there's rejoicing. And 5 days later, they celebrate. 5 days after the Day of Atonement, they celebrate there's the Feast of Tabernacles. The tabernacle of God is now with men. There's a rejoicing. Judgment for the people of God comes before the second coming. Before God is again united with his people. We saw that in the feast days. And now here we see in all of Daniel's visions, Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, 4 kingdoms of the earth, a judgment, and then God's people receive the kingdom. Christ receives the kingdom, and his people receive the kingdom with him. This is what we studied last week, Daniel chapter 9, showing very clearly at the command, from the going forth of the command to build and restore Jerusalem, until Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Daniel chapter 9. We saw that. What are we seeing here in Daniel 8? Daniel 9:24 says this: 70 weeks are determined, are shatak, are cut off, for your people and for your holy city. All right, Gabriel, what are they cut off from?